What's up, Passionates? I had to take a minute and get my thoughts together for this one. Real quick, though, if somebody tells you that they have a rule in place, an agreement with self in place, do not assume under any circumstances that you are the exception. Don't assume that if it's your child. Don't assume that if it's your parent, if it's your sibling. Don't assume that if it is your job, someone at your job. Don't assume that if it is your partner in intimacy, your significant other. If it's your best friend and y'all been friends for 30 years and they just came up with a new rule. If somebody says, I'm not waiting, listening to, I'm not receiving, I'm not tolerating, do not think that you are the exception to that boundary rule. Do not assume, do not hope. Most importantly, do not try to manipulate your way into being the exception to that rule. Because let me tell you what's going to happen. Even if the person is willing to be tolerant for a while, eventually it's going to come to an end. And all the tolerance and all the putting up with is going to culminate in, I told you I was not going for this. I meant it then. I'm standing by it now. You're dismissed. And that's not a good feeling. So unless you are prepared to be dismissed by somebody that you thought was going to put up with your nonsense until February, just because you felt like, well, either they put up with it thus far, or you felt like, well, I didn't think they were serious. Well, now you know they are. Why am I saying this? I have seen this happen where people have been given an advisory. Like, okay, you got X amount of time to get this together. And if you don't have it together in set amount of time, it's a dub for you. The other person decided, well, they don't really mean that. And they took their time. Then when they got dubbed, they didn't know what to do with it. That's on you. What you were supposed to have done was when you were given the advisory, you were supposed to heed the warning. You were supposed to take that into consideration. If somebody told you in a past relationship, I didn't tolerate this, I'm not tolerating this in this relationship, irrespective of the relationship type, right? Parental, sibling, intimate partner, work. If somebody told you I didn't tolerate it then, I'm definitely not tolerating it now. Or I tolerated it then, I hated it, I resented it, I resent them, I'm not tolerating it going forward. Do not assume that you are the exception to the rule. Also, do not assume if somebody said, this is the timeline in which this is supposed to be accomplished, or this is the timeline I'm going to allow you, and they granted you an extension, that does not then mean you are an exception. It means that you received an extension. Same thing like when you were in school and your teacher gave you an extension on a paper. The paper was due on March 15th and it was March 14th and you said, oh my God, I'm not ready. If I have to turn it in tomorrow, I'm going to fail. And the teacher said, you got 5 more days. You got to turn it in by March 20. You were granted an extension. That does not mean that you're never going to have to submit that paper. If you don't submit that paper, you're going to fail, right? So you are not the exception. I need you to understand the difference. I need you to over and understand the difference, because a lot of us are out here thinking that we are the exception to the rule, and we're not. And this is how our relationships crumble, because we've told ourselves that doesn't apply to me. Assume, unless that person specifically tells you it doesn't apply to you, assume that it applies especially to you. This way, you never get caught up in the, oh, but I thought. No, but you knew. That's it. Go forth. Be great. Be filled with bliss. Be armed and empowered with knowledge. Assume nothing. Confirm everything. Don't assume you are the exception to the rule, especially and even if you've been granted an extension. In all things, be passionate. I'll see you later.